So just welcome everyone. Welcome Channel 32 and the Star. Thanks for being here. And yeah, and we'll have Councillor Selk pray, please.
Our Heavenly Father, we bow before Thee at the beginning of this Council Committee of the Whole, and grateful for this community, grateful for the favorable circumstances that we find ourselves in as a community, and pray that we'll continue to be blessed as a community and surrounding area from the effects of this pandemic, and that we'll continue to have the favorable outcomes that we do now. We are grateful for the opportunity we have to represent the citizens of this community, and pray that we'll be guided in the decisions that we make. We are grateful for the things that are on our agenda, and we pray that we'll be able to find resolutions that will be of most benefit for the community, and pray for thy guidance and spirit and blessings to be with us in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So call to order. I guess I'll welcome Channel 32 and Star with us today. Just need to adopt the agenda.
I'll do that for you.
Councillor Barnes. All in favor? Thank you. We don't have any delegations, so just adoption of minutes of September the 1st CCW meeting.
I'll make that motion to adopt the minutes of the CCW meeting.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So number 6, bylaw and policy. Bill number 7. Jeff, do you want to
You bet.
chat a little bit about that?
So this was an item that was carried over from the planning session. This is about tax incentives for non-residential properties. It is the goal of, well, it's the intent of Bill 7. What we need some feedback from council on is, do we want to pursue any type of incentive, non-residential tax incentive programs, and under what parameters? Or at least we want to investigate at this point in time and look at. There's been some talk about this over, well, almost my whole time at the town, and I've heard it presented in a number of different ways, but until Bill 7, it really wasn't an area that a council could wade into very cautiously. It had a lot of risk. And so it seems to be much more wide open. In your background there was a video from, I just forgot her name, Carol, who talked about it in a webinar, and then I had her notes in here as well. So I'm just looking for some feedback if this is something we should pursue and how. And the other thing I would put out there is always keep in mind, if we pursue such a thing, how is it equitable? That's really what the Act is going to test. How is it equitable? So that's how I'd introduce it, Councillor.
Go ahead, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, I looked at the video, I looked at all that. I also looked at the reaction of the mayor of Calgary and the mayor of Edmonton on this one. And they had a little bit of cautionary approach to this changes to the law, because what they're worried about is that it can create some competition between businesses as to who gets the incentive, who doesn't get it, and create that inequality that you're talking about. So I really think, personally, I support the idea, but only if it does not penalize businesses that have done all their capital investing in this town up to now and got absolutely nothing for it. So I really understand, because many of them came to this chamber and tried to understand what could be done in their favor, if it was a utility break or if it was a tax incentive. And as Jeff said, we never had the bill to, or a bylaw to kind of do anything. So I could see it, for example, the law is fairly specific. It has to show something for the community. I don't remember exactly how it says it, but it has to enhance the community. So that's say, yeah, a council may by bylaw for the purpose of encouraging the development of or revitalization of non-residential property for the general benefit of the municipality. Provide for full or partial exemption from taxation under this division for non-residential property or deferrals of the collection of tax under this division on non-residential property. So it talks about different things. It talks in one place about deferral of taxes not to exceed 15 years, from what I understand, and or exemption of tax not to exceed 15 years either. So I could see businesses that are in town that want to expand for the benefit of the community. I can see those businesses having a potential access to that new bylaw incentive, tax incentive. It is true that those who are already have done their improvement would not benefit from it. But had we had the bylaw in place under Bill 7, we would have done it, but we couldn't. So moving forward, I can see that that is potentially an area that we could look at. I mean, under parameter, this Bill 7 really speaks of very specific parameters that you have to establish. It's not a free-for-all by all means.
Councillor.
I've watched these things over the years where various communities have given tax incentive to larger corporations and companies so that they could get started in their communities. They got their money, and then after 5 or 6 years, it was a feasibility, and they couldn't do it. The town lost out on the business. The town lost out on the tax deferral. In Quebec is a big example that's happened. Bombardier, some of those larger corporations have had that. They've done that. They've got large tax breaks to introduce new lines of airplanes and subways, and they've had some of those things go dud and weren't able to pay back those taxes. So it's a concern to me when I look at tax deferrals for corporations, for companies. That's probably not going to it wouldn't happen here because we never get anything that big here. But I don't know. I've seen it happen over the years, and it concerns me.
Yeah, Mayor.
Okay, if I could maybe
Go ahead.
explain my thinking. My thinking is not start with a new business. My thinking is you have an established business. For example, we had the pharmacy on Main Street that really expanded greatly. But then before they could even turn the first cent out of their expansion, they had an increase in tax that was huge. And they had to pay before they even had the first cent coming forward. Would have been nice if we could have deferred those taxes, for example. So I'm really thinking more of established business in town that want to expand,
Okay.
not new business. It's not what I had in mind.
Okay. The other concern I have, though, is long-term tax deferral. You know, when you talk 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
that's
But this
a
is
long term.
This is exemption
Yeah.
or deferral. Your council, through bylaw, can have parameters regarding either or both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Selk.
So, a comment and a question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I think in the video, and I've heard Jeff say this as well, that when you get into these sorts of sticky things, you end up competing against other communities.
That's dangerous.
And as Jeff would say, then it becomes a race to the bottom. And I think that's something we want to avoid. And then a question I have, Jeff, and maybe you can answer this, is hasn't Fort McLeod entered into something like this, a tax deferral? And can you talk to their CAO to see how that has worked for them?
So yes, they've been advertising pretty aggressively. I happen to have a meeting with Sue tomorrow at 11.
There you go.
So that we couldn't meet before.
Right.
No, Thursday, sorry, my apologies. We're meeting Thursday at 11.
Okay.
We have a bit of an inventory of things to discuss, but I want to understand that better. If I might, Mr. Chairman, I agree that I've always been cautious of Bill 7, even when it was proposed, because you are competing to see who can take in the least in sustainable revenue, which is an odd place to compete from. But there is business cases that make it work, and I will illustrate. Back, it was when Ryan Badney was here, so it was probably almost 9 years ago now. We had proposed to the ECDev committee at the time a program where businesses who improved their assessment by 25% or more could phase in the tax implication of the improvement. So they always paid the base tax they were paying before. But if they went and spent, it was actually Mr. Quinton at the Pharmasave on Main Street we were thinking about. I think he doubled his assessment at that building. Yeah. And yet he had to pay the full impact of twice the assessment immediately. And we thought, what if we could phase that in 20% a year over 5 years, for example? So in 5 years he was at 100%. And at the time, because Bill 7 didn't exist then, we ran it past Brownlee Law, and they said, don't do it. You're opening yourself up for litigation. It's a huge problem across the province right now. And so we just let it rest. But we liked the theory at the time that the existing business was still having to pay that base tax they were always paying. We weren't backing away from that, but we were going to give them some time to increase their cash flow based on the new renovation. And we've seen some businesses in town do some substantial renovations since that time, which they wouldn't qualify, as the mayor said now. It's not particularly a retroactive thing, at least not considered, but so that might be something that we would maybe want to entertain. I don't have a strong opinion either way, but our near neighbors are starting to do it, which now puts us in a strange competitive environment with them. So we have to be cognizant of it.
So I just wondered, can we direct administration to draft up kind of like once you have your meeting with Fort McLeod and you kind of get a sense of how they're doing that, and then we could bring it here?
Colhurst is looking at that right now, too.
Councillor Court, sorry.
Fort McLeod's a little bit of a different kettle, because they've got that huge bunch of land out there that they developed for the police college, that all facade was south on them. So I'm thinking that's what they're trying to fill in right now, is that developed industrial park right there.
Which they got fully reimbursed for all their costs. They have no money out for that land, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But they've got I don't know how many hundreds of acres sitting there just waiting for
Just lost
industrial.
the sale.
Mayor?
I was on the ECDev when Ryan Vadney and UTEF worked on that exact idea. And I really wondered if in drafting your bylaw, you couldn't address that idea of the time, that from what I could remember, those business owners were interested in that model. It's too bad we could not help them, but maybe there is something there that we should go back to, because there was an interesting base to start a bylaw for changes. Would you feel comfortable if that was used a little bit as a base to draft that bylaw? Would that you be okay? I see a nod here, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's only a bylaw, and a bylaw does not mean that it is a done deal, right? It's a draft. So,
Councillor Brown?
I would really like to hear what other communities are doing. I too, like Councillor Drew said, I would like to hear what these other communities are doing, just to see what direction they're going before I'm ready to.
Sure.
Sure. Jeff?
I just want to give an example, and it's literally one example, so it's anecdotal by the very definition of the word. Years ago, Coaldale advertised heavily a 3 for free promotion, where if you located a new business within Coaldale, within their industrial area, you got 3 years tax-free. And this was before Bill 7.
Right.
So I phoned my CAO colleague down there, and I said, how are you mitigating your risk here? Because that's dangerous. And he says, well, we're gonna see if there's any uptake on it first, because there's no uptake, there's no risk. So we're putting the feelers out, because it was all over the radio, it was very heavily advertised. They had zero uptake on it. Nobody took them up on 3 years tax-free to start their business in Coldell. And so what they found from that was, in that case at that time, I can't stress enough how anecdotal this example is. At that case at that time, the taxation scheme of the
Incentive.
community was not a decision, it was not a big decision or big factor in the decision of the business. So it did not change anyone's purchasing decision when starting their business. That's what they learned from it. But they did an aggressive campaign on it, because I heard it on the radio, is where I first heard it, 3 for free in Coldell. I thought, how are they pulling this off? And their CAO and I knew each other, and he said, well, it's only going to be an issue if we have a large uptake. If we don't have an uptake, it's not an issue, and it wasn't. So, again, there's so many variables there. The location, the economy at the time, the type of industry, there's so many things, but it could be interesting to see.
Councillor Selk?
I think one of the things that we as a council need to start wrapping our heads around, and Doug Griffiths made reference to it, whether you like Doug or not, but his point is that communities always wanted to do something to attract a big business there so that they would provide jobs. It's not, the world's changing, especially now with COVID, that if you create an attractive community, that people will relocate there because that's where they want to live. And I think that's sort of our focus should be, is what do we got to do to make the community most attractive to people so that they all move here and their business, whether it's online or whatever it is they do, then, and maybe it's making sure that they have spectacular internet access. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Councillor Bengry?
Is our county doing this right now with this new business on the bypass?
I have not heard that at all. I don't know that. There is, I'm just trying to think what I do know about it, Councillor, and what I can say. There is some, it's not a standard agreement between the county and the business, let's put it that way, but I
Right.
don't think it's under the Bill 7 umbrella, I don't think.
Okay.
Because I think the county still owns the land, is what I'm getting at. I think there's something there,
Tony's have to do his homework and then we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
so.
So, do we want to defer this? Do we want to,
Yeah.
just until we have a little bit more information from Fort McLeod? You've got a meeting this week, just so that we can kind of wrap our heads around.
Is there any no-go areas at this point, like we're not interested in looking at this or that, or anything like that, as I'm starting to frame it up, or pretty much let's see what's out there?
Councillor?
I think it's important to get some feelers out there and see if it's a possibility we can attract some business to our community, so be it. I think that's a great thing. I just don't want to, lose a bunch of money.
Okay, for you it's the attraction of new business. For me, it's more allowing existing business
Yeah.
to improve on what they have, which also helps the community. Any improvement that we have seen on Main Street has been, in my opinion, a good change for the community. I mean, there was pharmacy, Home Hardware, the dollar store, Edwards and Edwards. I mean,
CSL did a big run a
CSL.
while ago. Dairy Queen did a big run a while ago.
yeah, Dairy Queen. We maybe take all those changes for granted, but those have made our community much more aesthetic, even if nothing but that.
Okay,
And
so,
they have offered a lot more lines of product in some of the stores. They've increased their line. And by increasing their line, they allow people to shop local, which is great.
so can we put this on the agenda for
Soon?
soon? Yeah, whenever you find out that information, we'll move on here. That's all right. Okay. So let's go to other business. The pathway system, just need to discuss expansion plans.
Yeah, this was, council asked for this to be on the planning session, we didn't get to it. There's, as you saw in your background, there's been a number of iterations of a pathway system over time, some very modest and some quite ambitious. And I guess really for today, for me, what I'm curious about is given, in fact, on my whiteboard downstairs, I have about 7 or 8 things in the recreation area that there's been some discussion on recently. Is this a priority? Does it rank somewhere? If we want to really, for example, if we want a very ambitious, say a 10K path circle that will require out into the county in a few places, do we start pursuing easements? You know, do we start to see if we can even get access to certain lands and pursuing easements and those types of things now before we have to develop it? I'm just curious the priority of council at this stage.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's been a couple of landowners that have volunteered areas for a pathway, and they're showing on the map right there. Obviously, there's more work to be done on that, but I think if we got landowners that are willing to allow us to put a trail there, I mean, it seems to be the thing that's going right now. Raymond's expanded theirs and paid theirs from one end to the other. McGrath's got a beautiful one. Ours is used constantly down here. It's just not very long. So I would really be interested in seeing some kind of expansion of this particular trail, maybe over into the Atkins property, maybe all the way up into Cole Levis, since they both indicated interest in it.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I want it up there. It's not number 1 in my books, but it's definitely number 2. I mean, the rec center to me is the most important, go figure. And then I would definitely say, from what we're hearing from the community of all ages, this is important to them. They want to have a walking area. It's important. So that's what I think.
Councillor Selk.
I hate to keep, but one of the other takeaways from AUMA was that if you're creating healthy communities, you're taking costs away from healthcare. So the pathway, I think, is one of those investments where we're creating a healthy community. We're giving people the advantage to take a scenic route on their walk, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm with the other 2 councillors. I think it's a priority.
I personally always have enjoyed the idea of seeing pathway extended in this community. I really think it's the way of the future. But the concern I have is that we need to kind of scale it time-wise, timeline, and not try to do everything at once. I really think that if we had a little bit of ability to look and say to ourselves, phase 1 will go so far, phase 2 will go so far, phase 3, eventually we want our 10K. Because if it is intended to be paved, it's not a cheap thing. Paved pathway are expensive because you need to put a proper base to it. It needs to have a sustainable base. It cannot just be asphalt on a dirt thing. But the concept I totally support. I'm just trying to figure out the economics of that whole rec project that we have, and try to see, okay, where does it go in our priority? If it's priority number 1, then something will have to give, because right now we're putting aside $225,000 a year about that towards rec. And so there are other things in the community that will also require money. We all know that. It's no news to us. And at a time where the MSI is phased out in a year's time, and then the new formula is going to go with the ups and downs of the economy and will be based on population, we stand to have way less money for water, sewer, utility, etc. So the ability to use MSI for projects that are recreation are going to compete with other needs that we have. And we're going to have to review the way we do our roads and et cetera, et cetera. Everything will have to give, we know that. So as long as we are able to create a plan moving forward, and if that's a priority of council, no problem. But we need to figure out how we can do it without sucking in all the money that needs to be put on road pavement and utilities. I know some others might not agree with that, but the main job of council is to look after the town and its utilities and its road and all that stuff. That's our prime
Councillor Selk and then
Right.
Councillor Court.
thing to do.
I hate to throw another wrench in this, but I think we should also look at bike paths for all the mountain bikers and others,
Right.
because there's another attraction, not only for the citizens of the community and being healthy, and I know Shem's all over that, but, and I know that Shem has some good ideas about where we could actually run the bike path, and I think a bike path wouldn't necessarily be expensive.
State dirt,
Yeah,
It's dirt.
that's
It's moving
definitely
dirt.
cheaper.
So I'd like to suggest that we consider bike paths along with this.
As for the walking trail, I'm not suggesting that we pave it. I think what we've got down in the Atkins development is sufficient for a much, much less price than paving it. We're talking quite a bit bigger one than Raymond's got, and McGrath's got a very large one out by their golf course. It's been there for a long time, and then they paved that one that doesn't connect with their $600,000 tunnel, but anyhow, maybe it will eventually. But
Call it a ring road, if you will.
But I also want something for young couples to do. I don't want us to be known as a great place to flush your toilet because you have great utilities. So we have to have other things as well. And if you have to spend a little bit of money, then we're going to have to spend a little bit of money.
Gotcha. Councillor
Yeah,
Bengry.
so long it's,
Have that little bit.
so long the taxes can support it, right?
You know, if we want people to come here, we got to have something for them to do because we're a long ways from anywhere else. So.
Councillor Bengry.
Well,
I hate to throw this into it, but I was in the campground last week talking to an individual because he's been down there all summer. Big motor home and everything, and he says, I would love to have a trail to be able to access the golf course. You know, and I'm thinking, okay, we want to have our golf course accessible. We know what Mr. Levitt's going to develop out where he is. Can we make this pathway golf cart available so that they can, wherever they're camped, they can run that golf cart over to the golf course?
okay.
Then you would be talking a lot of money, you know.
If having the golf carts mean crossing the highway, it won't happen.
They do anyhow, but
Yeah,
If it goes underneath, you need to
Everybody
really extend
yeah.
the shoulder a lot.
But I don't think we should dismiss it.
No, I mean, sure.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah.
So,
I do like
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing everybody. Here's what I got. It looks like it's, this is me, my notes, by the way. Seems to be a priority for council. Look with Atkins and Levitt to see if we can start getting easements, make a phased proposal for development. There seems to be an appetite for some parts to be paved as they're a cheaper substrate, so my notes. I'll have Brandon start on the development of the track and then commence negotiation with the landowners, and we'll just keep you posted on
Good.
what that's looking like. So
Perfect.
that's something, actually, it's a decent time of year for him. He's got some year-end and inventory stuff as well once construction wraps up, but it could be a good winter project for him
Yeah, I
to
like that.
get it drawn and then start negotiations. Because I think in one of the proposals, you know, if Mr. Atkins is a willing partner, we still sneak over, I think, to the Quintons and a
Yes.
couple other places that we might touch too. So we just have to look at all that and what that
Great.
means.
Mayor?
Jeff, if you remember, years back, the Rotary had proposed some kind of extension to the pathway. I mean, it was a little bit hyperbolic, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be worthwhile contacting them and see if that is something that would still be interested in fundraising for.
I know their position right now on large projects, but we can certainly have that conversation.
Because for a healthy community, it's a different story than,
They're taking a little step back for a few years from the scale of projects they've been doing.
but maybe worthwhile talking with them.
This is MD golf.
I think we should
Councillor.
have the Rotary Club, once they finish the campground, or the camp, whatever we want to call it, down at the
Yeah,
Alliance
picnic
Park, once
structure
they
thing,
do
yeah.
that
Yeah.
structure, then they can work on the pathway.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I
I want to update the
understand.
map. It says
But that
MD golf
might
course on it too.
be a good
Where's
partner.
that? Oh, in the old
Because
one,
it
yeah.
was part.
It's not the MD golf.
Yeah, they've been involved in the past.
So is everybody comfortable with
Yes.
Okay.
what we've talked about? Okay, go ahead.
And the bike path thing, Jeff?
Yeah, I put also consider a mountain bike path in the creek area as well. Perhaps this can run parallel. They can run parallel with each other. So just in the design, we can look and see what that
looks like.
And again, there's better people than me to give input onto what makes a good bike path. So for me, it's no uphills. That's what makes a good bike path for me.
Shimon, they like the old.
It's all
Unless you have an
down.
electric bike.
As long as the whole track is downhill both ways, I love it.
Shem shaking his head, Jeff. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know.
ahead,
I know.
Mayor.
In Vancouver, the 10K run around the edge of the sea is for walking and bikes.
Yeah.
So there is a model there if you're looking for one.
But I,
Yeah, go ahead.
but I think that's not, I don't think that's the same thing that they're talking about here.
You're trying to get the mogul and all that
Bike
stuff.
track
They're
is
looking
much more
for-
aggressive.
yeah.
You're trying to do the moguls.
Our
okay.
pathway, I want this.
And
what-
they want that.
Correct, and
There's already,
this and
there's already an
that.
official one
All
already
right,
going on.
I
already.
get
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So the bike path is for the evil Knievels, the walking path is for everybody else.
Steady
But I
Freddy.
still like to ride my bike on that kind of stuff, even though I'm not
Say,
doing
you know
hills.
how many people are riding bikes
Well, you
nowadays.
may have to become evil king.
Well, there's-
if you
there's
ride
about
your-
100 people with e-bikes in this town, so I'm thinking
If you
they like
ride
that
your
trip.
bike on the walk path, I know in Saskatoon, they have walk paths and they have some protocol and etiquette for people
Yeah.
riding bikes and people walking, and everybody understands that if a bike
Calgary's
rings
the
his
same
bell
way.
or says, I'm coming through, they go left or right or whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Calgary is the same way.
That's what I have in Vancouver
sure.
on the seawall.
Okay, we move on. Everybody's good with that? Jeff, you
thank
got
you,
that?
yep.
Yeah, you bet. So the next couple are just considering sending letters. Carriage House Theatre would like a support letter for their SIF grant.
Here.
Yeah.
I recommend that we have administration draft a letter to support the CFEP grant for the Carriage Theatre.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. City of Lethbridge requesting some support.
I
Councillor? Yeah.
know this is late, but I would still
Yeah.
recommend that administration draft a letter in support of the city of Lethbridge's request for a call center.
Yeah. At
Dispatch.
at the last mayor and Reeve, they made note that we had not replied. So I think would be worthwhile doing.
So you're making that recommendation?
That recommendation.
Okay, all in favor?
I just want to mention on that, we got the letter right after our council meeting in September. And so, but I agreed that it's probably better late than never in this instance, because this
Yeah.
is a long way from concluded, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
This
still
issue.
Yeah, you
looking for
bet.
the support.
Yeah, this issue's a long way from concluded.
Yeah.
So AUMA survey, we want to do, we just are able to do one survey per municipality, so I
Fire
think
up the
we're doing that right
projector
now.
for me. Yeah, what I did, council, is they only wanted one per, and I wasn't comfortable actually answering on your behalf on a few of them. And so I thought, well, we'll pull it up and just do it collectively here,
Yeah.
maybe. If the technology wishes to support that position. Oh, here we go, it's coming.
Karate Kid.
It's under policing.
Well, I just gotta get connected here, other than that, I got everything else pulled up.
Here.
That's a little bit-
I did fill out some things that were obvious, got through some of that. So if you don't mind, we might need some discussion on each one. And I also want to point out that some of these questions are subtle, and I'll use the first, question 6 as an example. Does your municipality have a police oversight body? So we have a policing committee, but you are not a formal oversight body. Right, so it's different. So that one I could have answered. The answer is no, but then the next are now kind of getting into, so how often do we meet with the RCMP detachment?
At least 2-3
Yeah,
times.
I
2 to 3
thought 2 or
times.
3 times. Are we comfortable there?
Yeah.
Do you consider your frequency to be sufficient? I can't answer that for you.
I would say yes, in the sense that we can access them when we need them.
And have an ad hoc committee meeting or whatever.
Well, when they come and give their quarterly report too, is,
Yeah.
same, yeah, I,
And if we have an issue
Yep.
that call us, we
There's
go
an
there.
ad hoc committee.
You have your ad hoc committee. How often does that meet now?
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, there you go. So,
So you feel our frequency is good?
Yeah.
Do they provide you with a performance plan? But they
Yep.
do, by
Yes.
the way.
They do.
yeah.
yep.
Are you in, so the oversight body, well, is your municipality involved in developing the detachment's annual performance plan? So that one's unique too, because as a council, you're not necessarily, but the committee
The
is.
committee is, yeah.
And they report back. So are you comfortable if we
say
answer yes
yes.
to
Yeah.
that?
Are you always satisfied with their performance? Is that part of the question?
I think that's coming here. Do you receive regular reporting from your local detachment?
Yes.
You do quarterly. So yes, it's a quarterly report. Is there information that you would?
Can we have something else?
Yeah.
It's a quarterly report, but it's just not a paper. We have a presentation. We have the sergeants there or someone from the detachment, so we can ask questions. It's just not a blank piece of
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah, that's good. That's a better way.
Well, and they do come to council every once in a while, right?
Like he came to our planning session 2 weeks ago, just, in fact, he's coming next meeting for the quarterly report again. Is there any other information you'd like to receive that isn't currently provided? Anything
Well,
off the top of your
I
head?
think they're doing a lot more. They are now publishing things in a Star, in a local paper. So they're doing a lot more that was done in the past, so we got a little
They,
bit
they need their
more.
own Facebook page.
No, but this is no longer accessible to them. Or we told them not to access it.
We kind of ground a little bit on our own bylaw officer about his foot patrols and what the results were. I would like to see something from the RCMP. They say they go out. I assume they do. But what's their results? What are they doing?
Yeah. So they give us a number of how many foot patrols they do in the year, but kind of like when we talked with Sean, I want to know more about not every single interaction, but what are they, are they ticketing people for this? Are they doing, are they asking people to move along or like that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff
Yep.
that you're talking about.
They've been pretty heavy today.
Oh, yeah. It's really-
They've been pretty heavy today.
And when
We've got,
do we get the volunteer to tag along?
Right.
Oh,
that's-
right. I should ask Jill.
Yeah, that is something
yeah,
we.
let me follow up on that one.
What?
Our uniform and our gun.
1 second here.
flak jacket.
Okay, let me go back here. Any examples of effective collaboration between your detachment and your municipality that you wish to mention?
I'd say through our peace officer, our community peace
there is-
officer.
Yeah, he's
There is
working-
a
working
good relationship, good working relationship.
Okay. How could they improve engagement with the muni and/or in this case, community?
Okay, so that goes back to Councillor Brown, the question that she said we should have a Q&A, trying to address issues that people always talk about in this town, but never got
Well, I
a
just felt
proper
like
im-
I just felt like over COVID, when we had the mayors, you were doing it weekly there for a little bit. You would go online and talk about some things within the community. The people that were getting back to me were saying they loved the follow-up, they loved that information. And then when we met with the police, I just really felt like
Yeah.
from council, there were a lot of questions that have been asked to us that we happen to know the answers to, but I feel like we're not getting it out. And so
Right.
they're already watching for the mayor's announcement. I just feel like we kind of have this window here to go ahead and answer some of those questions. So I thought we could put a plebiscite or something on our Facebook page and our town page and just say, if there's any questions you would like to ask the mayor and the police, we would love to. And then we give them to you and you would have a Q&A back and forth. Coming to the meeting, knowing what the questions were ahead of time, I just felt like there's a need for it. And I feel like that's a great way of getting a lot of information out to the community that I don't feel is getting. It's not that we don't have it. Yeah, if you go into the minutes of March the 7th at 6:45, this was said, but not very many people do that. This generation is very, if we can watch it, we'll watch it. So I just think
Well,
it's.
I know Lethbridge Mayor Spearman does stuff on the radio on Friday morning or whatever.
Yeah.
It takes 2 or 5
Meet the mayor.
minutes and meet the mayor, yeah.
So I'm talking with Maggie and the Sarge.
I just think they're watching for it. We've got a window. I just feel like we've got the means.
No, I don't say I disagree. In fact, I do agree that more information the population is getting, the more we can shape their understanding and their reaction to our decisions. I agree.
Councillor Bengry?
I'd love to see our RCMP detachment commander, and maybe as corporal, pay a visit every 3 months to the seniors and make a presentation at their dinner. And I mean, that would go a long way.
Except they haven't been having them for a while.
Great idea.
That could be something that could be given to Butch, maybe. Butch could invite them.
Sounds good. Jeff?
So what I put on there was Q&A with Sergeant, published on local media, published frequently asked questions. Specifics, Councillor, like the seniors thing, I just put a note here, and I can talk to them. I don't know if going back to AUMA with that, it's pretty specific. This one was interesting. Do you think that processes for providing input on local policing should be formalized and standardized? For example, independent municipal community police oversight bodies, which are currently optional, could be mandated in legislation.
No.
And this has been an interesting debate over time, because one of the debates around the new policing funding that we're all having to pay is, then we need a seat at the table that's legislated.
Right.
Now, we've been fortunate that we have a voluntary kind of arrangement, but many municipalities don't, and so they've been petitioning for a legislated seat at the table, but with actual governance oversight. So not nice to know you, nice to visit with you, but we are now an oversight body for the local detachment. That's a different level of involvement, and I think that's kind of what they're asking, is that something that you would like to see mandated?
So in the past, towns that have their own police, municipal police, had such a body overseeing, or have, in fact, such a body. The RCMP never was under the umbrella of someone
These are federal.
overseeing their duty. So are they asking us if that's what we want?
I think so. It's asking, do you want a legislated oversight body? Because you currently don't have that option because you're a community under 5,000.
It can be good and not good. It can be very dangerous.
But Jeff, at the same token, we have a member on the Alberta Association of Police Governance. So that is coming along big time. And you're getting emails from them all the time.
Yeah, but it still doesn't legislate, you have any oversight into the priorities of your local detachment. That's still what it doesn't do.
You know, there was a time when we had our own police force here in town,
No.
and Councillor Bengry was one of those officers. But the mayor and council were directly responsible, and they were responsible to reporting to the police, and we had oversight with the police department because we spent the money.
Right.
And then that changed when the RCMP took over policing in the province, and we weren't required to spend the money anymore. But now we're required to spend a lot of money And I feel very strongly that we need to have a voice at the table, and it should be legislated. That's my feeling. When we're going to start paying $300,000 and $400,000 for policing, that's a big chunk of change, and we need to have some say in what they're doing with that to make sure it's done right.
Okay, so here's a little bit where I see the need. If that is such the case, to have an overseeing body, you need to be careful with how that body reacts, because anyone who has a complaint that will come might be flooding you with things that should not really be in your hands to justify.
I understand that, Mayor, but Councillor Bengry brought up a valid point. There is a body now that he's on. Maybe that's the body that needs to be.
No.
No.
I don't know.
No, I can't tell you no
Well,
because.
okay, whether we have trouble or not, we need to have some say. And we have to cross that bridge when we get to it, because we can't just say, all right, we're gonna have a problem here, so let's just not bother. I think we need to have a committee of some kind, and whether it's every community or whether it's a cross-section of those communities, somebody from, a representative from so many communities, I don't know what the answer is, but
Councillor.
I think there needs to be some say.
I hope I'm taking you right, Mayor, is some of these committees, these legislative committees, become micromanagers. And we got to be careful of that kind of a situation where we don't start telling them how to do their job. And because they know how to do their job, it's how effective are they in our community at their job that they're doing.
So we're getting away from the actual
Yeah.
question here, but
So,
anybody have, I guess, show of hands of who says yay or nay?
Yes.
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 Yes, it's a yes.
I think so too.
Sorry.
Again, you have to be careful. I'm seeing what's going on down in the States right now with these groups are wanting to defund their police force, and it's the groups we're talking about right here, the oversight guys. We've got to be a little bit careful that we don't step on too many toes doing this. I mean, I think we have a pretty good relationship with RCMP. We don't need to
Well,
rock the boat too
If I
much.
might make a comment on that, Councillor. The head guy, the sheriff, is elected down there in the
Yes.
States. They have a different system than we have,
But they're still
right? Ours is a
dictated.
government body. They don't get
prosecutors
elected.
elected too, I know
And
that.
so they are accountable to their counties, or whether it's to their communities or whatever. So they have an oversight body,
Yeah.
which they are accountable to. And if they don't perform, then next 4 years, they're gonna be out the door and there'll be another sheriff in there.
I understand that.
So that's where their oversight is, and we don't have the same situation here, but I think we need to have some kind of say. And I think we voted yes anyway.
Good
Are we
discussion.
Enough said.
safely yes with the local oversight
Move
body,
on.
including elected officials?
Yep.
Okay. All right, oh boy. Make sure they all fit on the screen here. Ranking policing priorities in order of importance for your municipality in 21-22. So, I think the easiest thing is pick one and pick the first one. And I know there's 7 of you there, so coming to consensus may be a little tricky, but
Number 3.
have
mean,
a go.
Number 5.
Jeff-
Number 2.
Jeff, do you remember exactly the order of priority of the RCMP right now for this year? There is property crime and there is,
I don't have theirs in front of me, Mayor, sorry.
Property crime and theft.
Sorry, it'll be back up here in just a minute.
they have 3 that are looking at. Okay, let's
Read
see.
them off.
Yes, so traffic enforcement, family violence, illegal drug-related offenses.
That's
Right.
1,
Sorry, no, that's
1, 2,
1,
and
2,
3.
3. I'm
Okay.
just reading them in order.
Okay.
Impaired driving, crimes against persons, in other words, assaults and threats, minor property crimes, so theft under 5, major property, theft over 5, proactive community policing, in other words, school and resource officers, and increased focus on prolific offenders.
But those were not in order, so
No,
were
I'm aware.
random.
Just
I'm aware.
randomly.
Yeah, that's just the order they have them in.
So the community policing one, can that also include loitering, littering, and lollygagging?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
3 hours.
They use examples of school resource officers and patrols. So,
Just
yes,
right
I would
in the
suggest
back
that.
alleys.
Oh, here we come up slowly but surely.
We have liftoff.
I think in our community also, minor property crime, sometimes people get frustrated because they don't think the RCMP are looking for their stolen bike or whatever. That might be a focus we might want to think about.
Okay. Does anybody want to stick their neck out for what the number one is? And again, this doesn't set them, but
I mean,
Three.
major,
Yeah, number
major
I would say 3.
illegal drug.
what do you mean 3? Illegal drug-related offenses?
Yep.
So are we saying
They
that's
will-
number one?
That's, yeah, I'd say it's 1 or 2. But that's me.
Way down at the bottom, that proactive community policing.
I mean, impaired driving is an important thing too, because impaired driving can kill people, can destroy lives.
Councillor Drew?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
But if you look at this in the order, so if you take drugs, then you're going to beat somebody up, drive impaired, you know what I mean? So start at the top. So I just think, if you think of importance, if we can nip in the butt illegal drug-related offenses, then family violence goes down, then crimes against person, you know what I mean? Like, to me.
Yeah, the
that-
relationship there.
Right,
Yeah,
like
I
it
see where
feels
you're-
like,
Where you're coming from.
if, I mean,
But if you look, sorry,
No, that's fine, go ahead.
go ahead, you have not finished
no,
your
I was just gonna say, so if you were to look in the order of, you know, if you handle this, then these other ones that come below it are, there won't be as much of them.
Well, I understand that, but when you look at what we have in our report every quarter, where are the most offenses? It's in drug, alcohol, and traffic enforcement.
But
That's
that's,
where, that's in our community.
but that's what I just said. I think that should be number one. I'm agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Councillor Selk?
The problem is that number 3 and number 4 should kind of be blended because
Yeah.
it's not so much that they're
Agree.
impaired driving, it's that there's
It's a whole
alcohol
notion.
and drug consumption on Main Street.
Agreed.
If it was impaired walking,
Yeah,
that might be a
it's,
different thing.
it's a whole,
Agreed.
it's a whole notion of alcohol and drug abuse.
Okay. So how do we,
Makes no difference, one, two,
do I just
whichever.
start
Yep.
taking this chunk here
Yep.
because they're all related and
Yep.
is there any one that is the low one? That's also another way to look at it.
You know,
Other.
I have a question.
All right, way to call out on that one, Councillor.
I have a question here.
Nailed it.
When we talk about proactive community policing, i.e. school resource officers patrols, are we talking our local peace officer here?
Us, yeah.
Because I don't want to ignore that situation because it seems that the money that we're spending on on the RCMP is hitting the ability to provide a local peace officer. There are other communities who've had to let them go because they're in a money, problem. They can't afford their peace officers. And so I'm concerned about, the timing of this paying for police officers when so many communities have started to get peace officers. And now, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a conspiracy theory, but I think we have, that community, that peace officer we have is a very vital thing to our community.
I know when it comes to school resource officers, the RCMP have an officer
And I don't like to see it at number 7.
assigned to the high school.
Yeah.
I'm also, they quite often talk about the crime in town as being, if so-and-so gets out of jail, it's going to increase by 50%. So I'd like to see a focus on prolific offenders as well, because that seems to
Yes.
be It
Yes.
seems like most of
very
our crime is done
important.
by 5 people. So,
So I'm just moving things around
Yeah.
here to make it fit, okay? So you tell me if any of these need to change. And again, this is just giving AMA
Yes.
some idea of priority. This isn't setting anything in stone.
Are we comfortable with this?
Where is crime against person? Okay, so it's not bad. Yeah.
Movement that we could be here all night doing this.
Yeah, we could.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
there's no
Okay.
Good
perfect
to go?
formula here.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so we get to rank some more stuff, but it's only a list of 6. Rank the RCMP service issues in the order of importance for your local detachment to resolve. So you have response times, visibility, vacancies, engaging with us, communication with community members, other. So there's really only 5.
But I think the response time is a very important thing,
Community visibility is an
and
important.
that's up there too.
I would put it.
Number 1 and 2, yeah.
I think so.
If I could ask, do we know, is there an issue with RCMP response times? It's not something I've heard, but I wouldn't, I don't have an opinion on it one way or another, I just don't know.
I don't think
I
there
don't
is.
know.
in the past,
Depends on the
I've heard
time of the
some
day.
complaints.
Because this is asking us what we want them to resolve. So it's not just what our priority is, but is there, what
Like I
do
said,
we?
in the past, I've heard complaints about response time, but
Okay.
recently I haven't heard too much.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I think, to go back to your idea, I think communication with community member and other stakeholders should be pretty high, because we can do better on that idea.
Yeah.
Number 1.
2,
I don't know, I'll change whatever you want. I think
so
we're fairly
is-
happy with the community engagement is what I heard
Yeah.
in this
Community
list, okay,
visibility
good.
up there.
Down to 3,
We have trouble.
1, 3, 4.
yeah.
Filling vacancy, we're pretty good around here. I mean, we're
Community
not bad.
visibility is a priority too.
Yeah.
So out of those 2,
I
which
put
do you
that
want as
I
1?
put visibility as 1 for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
1
so.
and then,
Okay, which
and then
leaves
3 for the other one, yeah.
Okay, we good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I actually didn't look how long this went, but I think it's, I think it's close. The RCMP currently determines how to allocate additional or new resources by analyzing each detachment's workload. They take the following into account. Rank the order of importance to these factors to your municipality. And this one's a bit interesting because of the wide expanse of our municipality, first of all. And the other thing that's very interesting, which isn't covered here, that we need, in my opinion, by the way, we should look in 18, is our proximity to the First Nation does add a lot of work to our detachment, which isn't considered in the above criteria.
Exactly.
Right, so it's just unique. Between the border to the south and the First Nation to the north, we have demands on our detachment which are unique.
And you can put that in
And
18.
with a border also.
Yeah, I'll put that in 18 if you guys want to start kicking
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
those factors.
Put the number 1 down at the bottom, the time available for proactive policing.
What's this?
That, on that survey up there, the time available for proactive policing. Patrols, community engagement,
Okay,
I'd put that number 1.
Oh, I do too.
Yep.
The film night they're doing.
Number 2, the amount of time, or time occurring in the area, types of crime occurring in the area.
okay. You want to just fill in the rest on these ones?
I think our detachment's big enough, isn't it? That'd be my last one.
I agree.
Size of detachment.
Again, I'm just totally filling in blanks here. Stop me if you want.
You're doing great.
And I'm left with travel time on 5, by the way.
Great.
But, and then I just put customs border to the south requires resources, First Nation to the north requires resources.
Travel time is a big
Yeah.
issue in this detachment,
Put an S on nations.
That's
because
the First Nation.
the travel time
We
for
won't have more than
them
one. To the north, just
to go from the border to Glenwood, for example, if they're needed there when they're at the border, that's a big issue for them. They cannot respond instantly. They really can't.
Hold on.
Yeah, what do I swap, Mayor? I'll swap that for 3 and put this one back
That's
to
a
5.
40-minute drive.
You know, I mean, that is their issue too,
So the travel time, is that pre or post-COVID? Because doing
regardless.
virtually nothing at the border because there's nothing going on at the border.
Yeah, but I mean, even
Now-
if they are at Police Lake and I have to go to Glenwood, or if they're over in that area, you know, Paul Haven or somewhere.
We're good.
Okay,
Any
okay.
rural areas gonna have that.
So revenue through the new costing model will be reinvested to increase the number of RCMP officers in civilian positions. The investment prioritizes adding uniformed patrol officers in rural detachments, but will also add police officers to centralized units. A portion of the revenue will be used to fund new civilian positions to assist with administrative and provide investigative support. These administrative roles are intended to improve response times and help ensure officers have support they need. Do you agree that the RCMP resource allocation should balance frontline officers with centralized, specialized, and/or civilian positions?
Just a question on that. How will we ever know, or will we ever know if we get any extra policing for the $300,000 we're gonna be spending?
Right.
That really bothers me a lot.
I'm pretty comfortable telling you you can
Says
plan on
no.
you not.
Yeah, so.
That's what he
how
said.
How do we explain that to our MLA, premier, whoever, that we're just basically
He knows.
being taxed $300,000 for nothing?
He knows already.
There
So
I ranted, now I can quit.
is there a place for a comment at the end, Jeff?
I think so, yeah.
Because we could say, nobody really believes any of that paragraph.
Yeah, there wasn't
Right.
an other on this question specifically, but
Because they knew.
see question
Yeah,
19.
you're right.
So I guess the question is here, aside from uniformed officers, do we agree, strongly agree, disagree that they should have civilian positions? I mean, we don't understand the operations of it well enough to answer that very
You know,
well.
my concern is that our money is going to go to Calgary and Edmonton and Medicine Hat and Red Deer
Or Rocky.
to offset their costs, and we get diddly squat
Yeah, it's
from
pretty
that.
rural, so
We're
we get on.
subsidizing
Rural,
them,
Rocky.
and that really bugs me, and so I strongly disagree personally.
That's poor little.
But that's not the question.
Yeah, the question is balancing frontline officers with
Should they
civilian
balance?
positions. Do we take a nice agree because we like balance?
Well, we do need to balance.
Yeah, put
Should
that
be a
agree.
comment section in there.
Let's move on.
Councillor Selk?
My comment would be, yeah, I think we agree, simply because at least we'll get some benefit from the centralized and specialized units, as opposed to actually boots on the ground, which we will never see, an additional pair of boots on the ground in this community.
Well,
period.
Just agree.
We
Okay.
have an
Am I hitting
investigator,
next?
right?
Yep.
And we want to keep that.
You engaged in conversations whether any new policing resources will affect policing in municipality. Yes, we have.
Yeah.
What did we receive?
No, we won't
No.
see anything.
Yeah, there will be no, well, I'll put additional resources. You guys get to see my terrible spelling when I do this on the screen.
It's okay.
Judging away.
Okay. You can politely say, nobody believes that we'll see anything additional from the $300,000 we're spending.
Thanks for the new
But if
tax.
you already
And then-
say that,
and
then
then
you already.
big bold
a
letters,
prophecy
thank you,
fulfilled.
Barry.
More benefits.
Are we being truthful or are we not being truthful?
That's right.
Looks like we're done on this one. Has the information provided been sufficient to ensure that you as a council are informed? It's not if you like it or not. They've avoided that question very clearly.
The plague.
But the question is, have they provided enough that you understand how the costs are determined and how it's going to be used?
No.
Well,
I don't think so.
well, we kind of understand. We don't like it,
Again, that's
but
not
we
the question.
understand.
The question is,
We
you
do
get it?
understand.
So.
I don't think
we
it's
also-
been sufficient, but
We also need to understand that this was an AUMA survey, correct? And also understand that AUMA doesn't agree with the police funding model
Right.
either.
Exactly. We understand the model, doesn't mean we like it.
So isn't the answer yes, though?
I mean, I think you understand
Yeah.
it. You
We
just
do.
We don't like it.
Yeah, okay.
That's not what they're asking.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Holy cow,
That was painful, eh?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, Shem, you killed the mother.
So let's go to 7E Halloween. Councillor Court.
This will be really quick. The province says that they're not gonna do anything about Halloween, so neither should we. Just let it go.
I agree, totally agree.
Let parents decide. Done.
Is that the consensus?
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Can we possibly put something on the website
Thank you, that's, I was gonna bring that.
that will inform the population that follow the AHS guideline? But yes, Halloween, it's happening.
Yeah, thank you, I was
That
gonna.
would be a
I was
great
gonna
one.
Yeah,
mention
that's a good idea.
Little blurb.
We say that all trick-or-treaters should bring
Yeah.
ball gloves so they can catch it from the curb.
And in fact, on Friday, we might need to do a little bit of a blurb just for that purpose.
But I think you
That
should
sounds
put
good.
that in there.
I do too.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that, no problem.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Trick-or-treaters will be in masks anyway, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right.
I started to receive phone call and I had let Jeff know that last week that people were concerned, grandparents were concerned for their grandchildren, which was cute. And the grandchildren wanted to know if they could
Our
go out.
grandkids, a
And I
little
think
bag.
it's nice that the province at last put the word forward. Mine was to them, we're waiting for the word from EHS. We have not decided against anything.
I mean, it's simple, if you don't wanna give out candy, don't turn the lights on.
Yes,
If you
I
want your
mean,
kids
there
to
is
go, then
ways
don't
to do
let 'em
it.
go.
Councillor Brown, are you,
But I think in that address that you would give on Friday, I think it would be reasonable to remind people that this council did not approve of wearing of masks everywhere, not Halloween masks,
yeah,
are masks.
Right.
And that if in fact, explain to them about Halloween, we're not canceling it, but if people choose to not have their door open to it, it's all good. Just, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
I think that needs to
Just
be
be kind.
incorporated into it. Just be respectful.
Yeah,
And
and don't start
respectful.
pointing
Because we have
fingers,
seniors
right?
that won't, you know, some seniors are high risk and they don't want that. So I think we need to be respectful.
Yeah, okay, I'll do
Yeah, that's a good
something
point.
like this.
Okay.
Spray Park,
Councillor Barr.
Councillor Barnes.
Councillor Barnes?
My turn. Okay. So I've had a lot of phone calls regarding skateboarders at the spray park, quite a few, and it's quite concerned to me. I know how damaging those skateboards can be, especially when they start jumping up on the pipes and all the different things. And so Saturday morning, I took a drive. I went down there, and sure enough, there was at least 2-3 skateboarders, plus 6 or 7 other kids, all climbing over the fencing, sliding down on the units, playing around on the stuff. And it really bothered me that the Rotary Club and the community has invested almost $500,000 into that. And I had talked to the mayor about it, and she asked me if I would go and take videos, which I did. I sent the video to Jeff. And these kids just basically, no big deal. They got right back on their skateboards after I told them and skated around and came back facing me. And I told them that they needed to leave and get off of there, but they didn't. And as I looked at what's going on there with the fencing that's around there, it is totally inadequate. It needs to be at least 4 feet higher, and it needs to go around the perimeter of the whole thing, not just around those central things. We've got to find some money somewhere to protect that whole thing, because it really upset me to think that at least 2/3 of that thing is exposed. It's not fenced in. And Jeff sent me back an email and said, well, that's all the fencing we had available, and I understood that. But we need to get some money so we can get some proper fencing in there. And I think we just need to have a thing around there with a gate so that they have access to the spray park through the gate during the on season, but in the off season, it's locked up and nobody's in there. It is not a skateboard park, but the kids now are thinking this is a great place to skateboard. And I'm really concerned that money is going to be spent on more fixing that concrete and fixing the tubing and all those things that are there. And so I think that we need to
Councillor Brown.
do something about that
Councillor
to
Brown.
correct that situation.
I understand. I agree with what you're saying. It's very frustrating. We did bring this up when the request came forward that they wanted to have it down there. We said, because it's almost hidden there, you're going to get this element that comes, right? So the question is, what are we thinking? Razor wire? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Oh, no.
but you understand what I'm saying. There's a fine line. I think it would help to say, to have posters up, or not posters, but signage up that says, smile, you're on camera. Because cameras, and we have cameras down there because I just talked to Jill today. I think that, I mean, they're kids, and you're right. How dare they climb back over once you tell them to get out? But they're gonna. But I feel like if we can make it a little more visible, and the only way to make it more visible is to put it on camera and to say, you know, violators will be
Prosecuted, yeah.
I'm just,
You can't do anything to a 7 and 8, 10, 9, 10-year-old kid. These ones I saw down there were young kids, and their parents were just sitting there picnicking and, you know, encouraging the kids, go have fun.
but if we
They're
have,
not on the playground equipment. They're now over there playing. There wasn't one kid over on the playground equipment. Not one. They were all in the spray park area playing around there.
So,
but if I could just finish,
go ahead.
there are only two things, there are three things we can do. Put up taller fence, right? Take down the spray park, which I asked about, and they said that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it is a big deal.
yeah.
So there's that, or you're on camera and you will be, you know, having signage up. Really, those are our only options because we can't have the police down there 24/7. I would rather them on Main Street,
Yeah.
to be quite honest.
Yeah. Mayor?
My concern with the fence, no matter which size fence,
They're going to climb it.
they're going to climb. That it is 4 feet, 6 feet, a little enclosure or a large enclosure.
Yep.
If they are brazen enough to do 4 feet, they will be brazen enough to do a 6
Are they
feet.
climbing over at the swimming pool?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
They have, not regularly though.
It's a taller
So
fence too.
I think
That's what I'm asking for.
my problem is, as much I agree we need to protect this area, I am wondering if to create a cage is what we intended to do over there.
Councillor Bengry?
You know, I agree with Councillor Barnes because I've seen it happen.
It bugged me.
The problem is we have the same kids over and over again. They're the same perpetrators. They're not new. And they're just shaking it right to the total end. Something needs to be done by addressing the parent issue and saying, hey, you know, we've got your kid here, we're bringing him home, and consequently, they're in the skateboard, or in the spray park, using that as a skateboard park. And the parent needs to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, those parents are right there with them.
Go ahead.
That was my concern.
Okay, so here is the other issue. I'm going to kind of look at it from another angle. A few years ago, if you remember, we had a letter from one of the young people in the community that asked and begged council to have a skate park.
Skateboard park.
But we ignored it and we put the spray park.
No,
They want something.
Mr. Romo just sent us a letter, right?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I can interject, on that letter, they were asking us not to do away with the skateboarding equipment if we could relocate it for them to use.
That's right, but we haven't. Because the reason why we didn't is because of all the issue that the park at the time gave us. There were so many issues.
Take that batting cage down out there and put that skateboard equipment right there in that corner.
No, you don't want it down there.
Go ahead.
When this whole thing was going on down here, the RCMP told us you could follow the kids right up the back alley, you're right across the highway by spray painting right from that thing, so.
Yeah.
If we have one, I'd like it somewhere else besides the core, but it's some, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're
So,
not gonna be
It has to be visible.
so do we,
in the middle of nowhere then.
I'm not sure that there's a right answer to this, but it sounds to me like signage would be
That would be a
Probably the
best
right
thing,
now.
and
You can give it a try, but you're gonna have to really monitor that. If you start seeing lots of damage down there, something more than that's gonna have to happen.
and we could have our bylaw officer.
You know, I mean,
Shoot down there.
that's a lot of money. I'm concerned about it. You know, I
we
think
should all
if you had a fence as high as that's a swimming pool fence and you go up, and I'm not talking razor, I'm just saying you go up the top and have an angle, they're not gonna be able to get back out. They're not gonna go over it.
Could just collect them, Councillor Selk.
Playgrounds all over the place have fences. I don't know what the problem is. A fence with a gate. I have no problem with it, especially if it's a chain link. You can still see through there. It's not like a prison, for goodness sakes. It's parks. There's lots of parks around that got chain link fences with a gate on it. We got a tennis court that's got a tall fence with it, and it's got a gate for access, and it's locked up at certain times of the year. I'm really concerned about the kind of money we've spent.
Okay,
And you should be.
You know?
Councillor Selk, please.
Possibly we could,
And I'm prepared to make a recommendation to council that we do something.
Can we wait on that and let
Yeah.
Councillor Selk speak, please?
so perhaps we could approach Citizens on Patrol to augment some of the patrols around there to monitor the spray park.
What do we do on Saturday, Sunday?
Well, then you get I'm trying to think of since we are really into acronyms,
Oh, gosh.
cranky old guys on patrol. Need to go around there.
Cog
Careful, Counselor.
Get the cog up on this.
Which authority do they have?
Yeah, exactly.
Also
No,
note that as
I
soon as
don't
the
want to
snow
get out
flies,
there being
it's not-
grumpy. I think,
Yeah,
Right.
You know,
exactly.
soon here, it's just these shoulder seasons.
So it's December 21st.
Yeah.
I just have a question though, and I know that this doesn't answer your concern, Counselor, but aren't those spray parks built to be kind of
Resistant to that? No.
resistant? I mean, I think if you're going through there with a Mack truck, I get it. I don't know.
When I was down there, Counselor, they were grabbing onto the cannons and twisting them all over and sitting on, you know, just about like a teeter-totter, and they're gonna get broke.
see, all this stuff isn't protected. You just
But
got
it-
the central core protected, and the rest of the stuff that's out there, it's gonna get wrecked.
But put a spoke in the wheel. We got adults that are standing on the playground equipment and swinging and standing and banging around, you know, adults. That should be
Yeah.
kids, you know. So what do you do there?
So I'm not sure that there's a correct answer,
That's right.
other than maybe some signage saying that this is, you know,
See what happens from
I like
yeah.
it. Instead of big sign you're on video.
Well, I'm prepared to let you go with the signage and the cameras, but if it doesn't work, I'm gonna be making a proposal down the road
Sure.
for fencing.
So how about start with signage and ratchet it up from there?
Pardon me?
Start with signage and ratchet it up from there.
Yep,
that. Doesn't work.
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah,
yep.
Okay, yeah, can do that.
gotta do
Thanks.
something.
Thank you.
Good
Good discussion.
Lots of signage.
That's right.
Should look at.
So 7G, recreation facility, Councillor Brown.
Can we take the cannons out of there? Without any problem?
I have no idea.
Find it out.
I think that's a big
Signage
time
first,
thing.
signage first, and then we'll cross that bridge when
Because maybe we can take the cannons out.
Councillor Brown.
Is it cannon?
This is actually,
Should maybe get Randy to go and take a look if they can take those cannons out. They're gonna get wrecked. Dang it, they're gonna get wrecked.
Councillor Brown has the floor, please.
Yeah,
good?
sorry.
it's all good. This is actually a Councillor Selk and a Councillor Brown. My inquiry was in regards to, we've talked about this rec facility quite a bit. I'm just wondering what the next step is and if we're moving in that direction.
You're asking me.
I really am.
I gotcha. 1 second, actually. I thought I had this pulled up. Bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, I'm just pulling up my notes from the planning session. So, again, my notes, so
Yep.
it's what's going through my head at the time. How it ended on rec facility was that council supported spending somewhere in the ballpark of 1.5 million in recreation capital spending. And so we need to go then try and frame a budget around that number between the clubhouse and the facility.
Correct.
So that's where it's at. So I have our first full budget meeting on, when did I just call that? 14th. Yeah, next Wednesday. So we're meeting most all day on framing this budget, and I actually mentioned that in passing to Councillor Selk, we'll probably do, well, we do a 3-year and a 5-year anyway, so we'll bring you one that looks like the 3 and 5 year did from last year, but we'll bring another one which is going to omit a number of large capital to make way for this kind of spending in recreation.
Right.
Right, so we'll bring a couple options. So that's where it's at right now. To answer your question, is starting to build a budget around this 1.5 million number between those two facilities.
And, sorry, if I can. So then after that budget is created and we see where we're taking from, essentially.
Yeah.
Once that happens, is then when we move into the, okay, what does the building construction look like? How much are the amounts that are given, right? Because is that the next step?
Councillor? So my feeling is there's a couple of things that need to come together relatively quickly after building the first budget, because the facility, well,
Yeah.
so the clubhouse is still a bit ambiguous as to the scale of that.
Correct.
And I have Mr. Beezer coming a week from today to council meeting. He's been out of town.
Okay.
So he's coming next Tuesday to speak about that. And then we need to get an idea of what the preferred scale of this one is too, because
Yep.
it may be one or the other, or scaled down both, or we
Right.
don't know how much money that each group can bring to the table, so all that's gotta come together.
Okay.
What we don't know on it either yet is that, and we did it on the first proposal, which was much bigger in scale, but operational analysis,
Yes.
what that's going to cost. And then there is a piece, and I don't know, we haven't done, it's a bit anecdotal too, we haven't done much of a needs assessment on the facility, like who are the users and what are they paying and what are the revenue streams and all that stuff yet either, because we're still kind of coming together on this new scale versus the original a year ago one, right?
Correct.
Right.
So that's still got to all work out, because I think we're a long ways, in my opinion, and be happy if I'm wrong here, but I think we're a long ways from settling on this is the building and what's happening in it. You know, I still think we got some things to work through there. I mean, the first proposal, for example, contained a daycare.
Right.
Is that a priority? I
Right.
wasn't aware it was. I didn't think we were looking at that. So we've got to work through that. The clubhouse, we know it's seating anywhere from 30 to 130. We got to
Right.
sort that out.
Right.
Those kinds of things. But we're going to try and fashion a budget with roughly that much in spending anyway.
Okay.
So Councillor Bengry and then Councillor Selk, sorry.
I appreciate the fact that we discussed this in our planning, but I think we need to have a look at our priorities of what we can afford and what we can't afford at this point in time, and maybe do it in 2 phases. But we need to have that information like you suggested, Jeff. We need to have Mr. Beezer come and look at a clubhouse, because right now, our golf course looks like it's succeeding. So is it a priority to have a clubhouse at our golf course? Or is it a priority to have a rec center that we spend money on maintenance all the time?
Well, if we can have a pandemic every summer, the golf course is going to really put out.
But we've kind of had that discussion anyways in our planning session where the two most important things were both
Yep.
of what you
Both of them,
talked
yeah.
about, right? And I guess we would have to have a cap at that 1.5 million, and if the facility is going to cost 1.3, then I mean, what's the priority when it comes down to actual numbers, Councillor?
Just a thought on the rec center. I don't think you can ignore the need for a daycare for people that are coming there, because there's going to be a lot of moms that are going to come with their kids, and they won't have that time during the day to, to get away without their kids to go there. And I think that that has to be included. There's a lot of young moms that are going to use that. And if we ignored that, that would be, in my opinion, a detriment to those young moms coming and using the facility, and they'll be frustrated.
So that would be a discussion for down the road once we figure out. Did you have something, Councillor?
Yeah, but I kind of need Jeff here.
Oh,
Councillor.
go ahead.
Councillor Barnes, you're not only gonna have young people come to rec center, you're gonna have seniors that are gonna be walking and whatever, using the courts and stuff
Yep.
like that. So this is a multi-use
Oh, I
and
get that.
seniors do babysit grandkids.
I was just going to say, some of those seniors are going to be bringing some of their young grandkids there.
Yeah.
You betcha. So, and correct me if I'm wrong here. This is a committee meeting where we discuss these things. So why are we putting off that discussion to a council meeting? We need to go into a council
Well,
meeting kind
I
of
think-
prepared
I-
with the information.
I think
And that's
we
why
need
we
to
have these
Jeff
committee
bring us
meetings,
the
don't we?
information.
To discuss those kind of things?
Go ahead.
Exactly what I'm going to ask. Some questions about that. So you're right. It's not a daycare per se. It's a stay and play.
A
Where
stay and
moms
play,
drop
yeah.
off their kids
Exactly.
and then they go and exercise. So that
You
should.
might be there for an hour each.
Yeah. But the question I have is, if you're going to ask Councillor Brown or myself, what's the time frame on this? We're going to say we want shovels in the ground in the spring, so we don't want to lollygag on this forever. We don't want to talk about it because we've already talked about it for 3 years. So we want to get something done. So having said that, there needs to be engineering. There needs to be commitments to a supplier for the building, and so we need money. And we need money soon. So
Okay.
that's gonna be, I know you hate the idea that there's money involved in this meeting, but the rec complex ferry isn't gonna drop it in our lap.
Okay,
I'm not done yet.
go ahead. I'll be there. Hey,
Okay. So, there's a couple of other things. We need to talk about location, and Councilor Barnes is right. This is perhaps an ideal time to talk about that. One of the proposals has been, do we put it at the EJ Wood site, which there's some synergy there, some reasons for it. And if we think that that's a good place, Gibb has offered that he and I and another guy will go and stake out the complex for council's benefit, so you can actually see where it's going to fit into the property. And he's prepared to do that so that next council meeting, we could actually go and see how that fits in that property. So there's things like that we could do in the interim. But like I said, there's going to need to be some money on the table, and right darn soon.
Mayor, and then
All right, so I totally appreciate that, and we have put 1.5 million for the two facilities, and that's good. And I'm sure that Delbert will say he wants to see shovel on the ground in the spring too. So we need to find out the finances. You're exactly right. That's always the issue. So what we need to know is, from the proposal of Gibb last time, I heard him say that there was an appetite from the county to help us. He was looking for financial support from the school. He was looking for support from the town at the same kind of percentage, and then fundraisers to make up the difference. So to me, before we commit to anything, I want to know if there is a common commitment of at least 3 of those parties. Because if the school is out, it leaves a heck of a burden on a town and a county, not counting the fundraiser. The fundraiser, that is something that people will do. But I think we need to have a better sense of the involvement of the school, because the idea of putting it at IJ Wood E.J. Wood, was for the school to use it possibly as an annex to their own gym. So I need to know, first of all, if the school has been approached, and if so, when is it that we'll get an answer to those questions? And the same with Delbert. Delbert needs to be able to come and tell us, regardless of how much money we have left in our kitty, which this year was a bumper crop, and that's good. But we also need to know what is bringing at the table. And what is, from a governance issue of the facility, what does it look like? Who has the ownership of it? Because I always said they wanted the ownership. So all that has to be spoken of. Same story with Gibb. Who will have the ownership? Is that external from the town? And then what's the commitment of the town afterwards when it comes to maintenance on both facilities? We need to understand all those things, for me.
So just Councillor Bengry first and then Councillor Brown.
I agree with you, Mayor, but at the same token, we don't have any of that information. And until we have some proposals for building and building site, and then we can start to deal with the maintenance and who's doing this and who's doing that. Now, Councillor Selk at one time, I think during our planning session, had an ideal location for this rec center because everything is lined up, and it's starting at the swimming pool. Take your rec center to the south of it. You got your spray park, you've got your Lions Park, you've got your football field, your baseball diamonds, and everything is collaborated in that one area. So if you're not playing football, you're over at the rec center or at the swimming pool or whatever. It gives everybody an alternative place to be when something is happening in the Lions Park. But like I said, Mayor, I agree with you that we need to have all this micro stuff determined, but I think that comes after we find out what kind of a building we want or what kind of proposal there is and so forth.
I don't know that I totally agree.
Councillor Brown.
Okay?
Okay, so I cannot speak to the golf because I don't sit on that committee anymore and I'm not aware, so I can't speak to that. I can speak, as Councillor Selk can, as to the new building the new rec center that we're looking at. The Pickleball Association went, as Councillor said last time, they went to the county, and the county has agreed to be in partnership with us. Of course, they too, like everyone else, is waiting for numbers, which we need to get. I agree. Secondly, they did go to Westwind School Division on Thursday, and Westwind School Division, they pitched the same thing that they pitched at the county, and they're waiting to hear for that answer. They don't have the answer yet from Westwind School Division is what I can tell you. It's my understanding. They haven't heard back yet. Yep. Thirdly, the frustration with me is that I feel like once we get the budget, I understand that, of course, that takes time and all of that. But I feel like a lot of these questions it shouldn't take 3 years to answer them. I feel like we could sit down in a productive meeting with the people that are invested in this and have council and them sit at a table and come up with, I don't know, a game plan. And in that game plan, we can know what their expectations are. Because, Mayor, you're 100% correct. We can't make big decisions unless we know what their intent is. But I'm tired of talking about it. I want to sit at a table with them and have them answer it so it's not hearsay. Well, Councillor Selk, did you hear from the text? Or that's frustrating to me. I want them sitting at the table with us. So, because I went to a meeting last night and I was given an amount of how much a building could cost, the square footage, the new drawing. I was given all of this information. Of course, y'all haven't been given it yet, but they want to present again. But I think we need to stop. We need to get her done. Just get her done. That's what I would have to say.
High five.
Councillor Court.
Well, I will tell you, wisdom
Yeah.
tells me that unless you have money
Agreed.
and a source of money,
Absolutely.
it's difficult to move forward and realize something. I am all for seeing something. We promised that we would use $1.5 million between the two facilities. You are right. Do we want to see something, some action before the end of this term? Of course we do. We all do. But it has to be done with wisdom. We know the rule. We know how money and a plan and a budget is the way to go if you want to be successful. So let's do it.
Councillor
It's
Court.
not the other way around.
I don't think Councillor Brown is disputing that. I think she's frustrated with the length of time it's taken to get to that point.
Well,
If I could address the golf thing, because you covered that other one very well. As far as Mr. Beasley is concerned, I'm very thankful that he's looking at this, but he's had over a year to do something, and nothing's happened that I know of. Now, I could be wrong. He may come and present, and he's got everything just lined up, bang, 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 bang. So rather than wait for Mr. Beazer,
Okay.
can I finish?
Sure, absolutely.
Rather
I
than
only
wait
raised
for Mr.
my hand.
Beazer to come up with whatever he's got, let's get moving forward on an alternate plan.
Okay.
I know what he wants, because I was at the meeting, he wants a great big huge clubhouse. We may not be able to accommodate that, and he also wants the town to take it and run it, and I'm not sure, a
So-
yearly thing, so anyhow.
Councillor Selk and then the mayor, sorry.
Good. So a simple answer to who owns the rec center, the town does. It's ours. As for numbers, the meeting that Councillor Brown and I went to last night, you're looking at a hair over $1 million. And that's all in. So obviously there's gonna be some things that are gonna come up and all that, but at least you're looking at a number now.
And that's
What's
for
the
one
final, what's the
facility.
bottom line there, Councillor Brown? Because I don't have that document.
That's for the rec facility, right?
For the
Yes.
rec facility,
Yes.
the bottom line was 177 million.
Well, we don't
One,
have that.
no, not 100.
Wait, what?
1.077.
Yeah,
1.077.
but that was all in. That was for the whole, and that is for, can I just see that real quick?
And that's
that-
for, yeah, that's for,
How many square feet again was that?
it's like 200 by 100.
15. It was 15.
It's 15,000 square feet.
Correct, 15,000 square foot.
Okay,
Okay.
so right now, two of you have information, the rest doesn't.
Agreed.
So to discuss something,
Right.
when two have the information, the rest doesn't, I think it's unfair. I'm
Correct.
sorry.
Okay,
But
we just had the meeting last night.
No, it's fine, but then give the information to everybody.
Go ahead.
But that's my point. I would like to. That's why I had it put on the meeting today, because it was important. It wasn't on the minutes, or it wasn't on the agenda. We put it on the agenda so that we could bring it up, so that we can talk about it, so that we can keep everybody in the loop. That's the goal.
But we
Because we
don't have the
cannot do
document.
anything, but we cannot do anything unless we have a meeting in regards to it.
Can I borrow the photocopier?
I can go copy everything, that's just
Yeah,
fine.
I'd love to see
And
it.
then maybe we can recess for a few minutes.
Sure. Somebody, do
Everybody
Good
can
idea.
calm down.
you want to make that
If you
motion?
had a key.
Yeah, I moved to recess for 15 minutes.
You're good?
All in favor?
Good.
Okay. Let's recess.
Have some food.